Hello everybody, I am NotPog, and welcome to another Origin review video. For today's Origin review, we are reviewing another beloved Origin created by Shrumple, who has made a comeback on our channel once again. For this next Shrumple Origin that we are covering today, we are covering the Hakari Origin. Hakari is a character from JJK, also known as Jujutsu Kaisen, that is primarily in the manga right now, but he will be introduced in JJK later once it gets animated. But he's become very popular because of the memes, such as the Tuka Donka. You gotta play the clip, Nelly. Play the clip, Nelly. Anyways, let's get on with the Origin review. Kinji Hakari. And this Origin does not have a description, but I basically described him already to you. So let's get into the first and the coolest power of all. Domain Expansion Idle Death Gamble. You activate this with your primary key, in my case it's X. So this is a long description, but please bear with me. It might hurt your brain, but I'll condense it for you at the very end. Upon activation, every entity in a 15 block radius of you will be brought into your domain expansion. Entities caught by the domain will have their mind forcefully flooded with information being the rules of the domain, stunning them for a short time period. The environment constructed by this domain resembles an underground train station, aligned with pachinko slot machines. After a brief wait, the domain will begin rolling. The goal of this domain is to roll 3 of the same numbers in a row. On the first roll, there is a 30% chance of this happening, 45% chance on the second, 55% chance on the third, and fourth roll is a pity roll, which is a guaranteed jackpot. After the initial roll, the domain will roll every 10 seconds. The longer the domain lasts, the longer the cooldown on it will be. If 2 of the same numbers are rolled in a row, then a reach action will play. A reach action is basically a cutscene that has some good and bad outcome, which signifies if your next roll will result in a jackpot. When the user lands a jackpot, they will be effectively immortal for the following 41 seconds. When the user re-expands their domain after a jackpot, they have a 75% chance to go into an increased probability round and a 25% chance to go into a time reduction round. The spin chances on the increased probability round are 50%, 65%, and 80%. The time reduction round reduces the total spin time if the player ends up on a pity. During the time reduction round, they will be sent back to the normal round. This does not happen with the increased probability round. The user will also be sent back into a normal round upon re-expanding if they died during their domain last use. Upon hitting jackpot, the domain closes and you are granted infinite regeneration and other buffs for exactly 41 seconds. So that was a very long description, but basically let me sum it up for you. When you open the domain, it basically is like gambling. It starts rolling and each roll has different chances of giving you the jackpot. But then there also is a pity round where it gives it to you guaranteed, which is pretty nice. When you hit jackpot, it will take you out of the domain and will give you a bunch of buffs, but if you do not hit jackpot or when a reach action activates, you basically go through a cutscene which basically changes some probabilities and some events in the domain. You can download the Origin and check it out for yourself, and make sure to get the resource pack because this does have some custom textures as well as some custom sounds. But without further ado, let's get on with the coolest power of this Origin. Alright, so this is the increased probability round, and as you can see, it starts rolling as well as brought my opponent here. So I could attack him, but I'm not going to really attack him until I get some rolls. And later in the Origin, there is a power, but I will be using it here and explain it later. All right, we're gonna double down. Jackpot. We got the jackpot, and now it starts memeing. All right, let's attack him. Do I have weakness? Oh, we use our fist. So that was basically the domain expansion hitting the jackpot, as well as one of the reach actions, which is the trains, which honestly is super, super cool. So as you could see, once I hit my jackpot, I essentially became immortal. I was punching the golem with my bare fist and not dying because of my infinite regeneration, which actually is based off the manga, which is super, super cool. And honestly, I think that was very well made. I'm very impressed that this can be even done with Origins. It's just insane. But let's get on with the second power. All right, for our second power, we have Shutter Doors. Using your secondary key, upon activation, you spawn in Shutter Doors, 2 blocks in front of you, which slam into each other, damaging anything caught between them. So if I summon, let's go with the weaker enemy, so like a pig. If I use my secondary, as you can see, I summoned 2 little Shutter Doors that basically just crushed him. It does have a long cooldown, but honestly, it is super, super cool. Let's get on with the third power. We have Pachinko Swarm, which also kind of means slot machine. Upon activation, you fire out a swarm of Pachinko balls. The swarm can be 3 possible colors: green, red, or gold. The color of the Pachinko balls represents how much damage the skill will do, with green doing the least and gold doing the most. There's a 60% chance of the swarm being green, 30 for it to be red, and 10 for it to be gold. A green swarm of balls does 4 hearts of damage, red does 6, and gold does 8. Anyone who is hit by this will also be momentarily concussed, stunning them for a very brief period. So, if I summon, let's go with Vindicator. If I summon this guy here and use my load bar, as you can see, I got red, and it did stun him for a bit and dealt a lot of damage. Oh, and he's dead. All right, let's get on with our fourth power. For fourth power, we have Pseudo Spin. Upon activation, you randomly roll a multiplier. Depending on how large the multiplier is, you heal back some of your health to negate an instance of damage. 1 times heals 4 hearts, 60 chance, 2 times heals 6 hearts, and 3 times heals 8 hearts. This skill is only usable during your domain. So when I was explaining earlier in the domain, I was basically doubling down by increasing the chance of like my roll just so I could heal. Even though I wasn't fighting the golem, if I was fighting someone, that would help me heal in that domain. So a pretty fun little gambling aspect of the origin. Really, really cool, only usable in the domain. And let's get on with the next power. For our next power, we have Dynamic Entry. Using our ternary key, which does depend on the Extra Origins mod, upon activation, you imbue yourself with cursed energy to boost towards where you're looking. If you launch into the sky and fall from at least 5 blocks height, then upon landing, you will create an explosion and a surge of cursed energy, destroying blocks and damaging players and mobs in a 6-block radius of you. So it is essentially like a simple dash, but if you use it to fall, then it's even more worthwhile. So if I press it, it's just a simple little dash, but if I use it for falling, it causes an explosion. So let's do that. All right, so let's jump off this tree. Wow. And as you can see, it created a big explosion that also dealt some damage around the area. On to the next power. All right, so our next power is Fever Meter. This meter represents your domain cooldown. To activate your domain, this meter has to be full. Upon activating your domain, you consume half of this meter. Every failed roll inside your domain consumes more, and this meter fills up passively, but it can also be filled up by dealing damage with your preview performance skills, shutters, Picchino Swarm, etc. Activating a pseudo spin will also fill up this meter. As you can see, it is that green bar right down here, and essentially is my power source for this origin. Let's get on to the next power. Our next power is Cursed Energy trait. Your Cursed Energy has a unique trait with it being extremely rough. It's described as being hit by a serrated metal bat. Wow. Because of its unique properties, all your hits will apply a bleeding effect for a short duration, and all your skills apply this bleeding effect. So when I killed that Vindicator earlier, as you could see, it died by some sort of bleeding effect, which initially I thought was just the ability, but it is actually the bleeding effect in coordination with that ability. And as the description said, all your abilities have that bleeding effect. Our next power is On a Roll. If I hit a jackpot on my first roll after I've already hit a jackpot, then I will get into a buffed/boosted jackpot mode. Instead of speed and resistance 1, you also get speed and resistance 2. And you have added effects of jump boost 2 and infinite saturation, so basically you become even more insane. So, pretty self-explanatory. We are on to our first debuff. So for our first debuff, we have Hindrance. You prioritize speed over defense, and therefore I've sacrificed all forms of worn armor, so I can only be quick, can't wear any armor, including Elytras. So, like it says, I cannot wear any armor. So even if I give myself an iron helmet, which normally Origins let you wear, this one does not. Which I'd say is pretty balanced due to the fact that you literally become God when you hit your Tukadonka. Alright, and for our last debuff, we have Brawler. You are in close quarters, using hand-to-hand combat and your techniques, therefore you cannot use any weapons. So I discovered that when I hit my jackpot, but pretty self-explanatory. No weapons, only your fist. So essentially you don't really need armor or weapons, so in terms of Minecraft progression, it does limit you a little bit with what you can do, because there's not really an incentive to go mining if you don't have armor or weapons, but you do have a very powerful origin as well as your fist, which is your main power. So it is pretty balanced, but if you're looking for a long-term game progression, I'd say that this is one limiting factor. Despite that, overall, this origin is super nice, and honestly is probably one of the best well-made origins that I've seen in a long time. I mean, that train cutscene, the slot machines, the attention to detail, I mean, it's honestly insane that that's even possible within an origin. So, big up to Shrumple, and I highly suggest to go follow them on YouTube, go follow them on Discord, go follow them on whatever social platform that they have, which should be all in the description, because honestly, their work is truly amazing, and it always surprises me with each one, whether it's the Gojo, whether it's Hakari, whether it's the future ones that they're working on. Honestly, they're all insane, so go check them out. Anywho, I am NotPog, and I will see you next time. Peace.